There you go. All right, come on. Come on. Come on, move over. Come on, let's go. Come on. Move. Come on, move. Move. Fucking move, Denali. Fucking move. There, get over there. Come on. Get over there. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. There you go. Well, dumbass. There you go. There you go. There you go. No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm quitting. There you go. There you go. Hey, Trinity, how old are you? Your parents know you're here? Your parents realize this is a channel that's made for adults, right? Okay. Because this channel is changing, Trinity. You're not going to see as many videos of the dogs on here anymore. I'm just letting you know straight up. You'll probably see live streams of the dogs. And if the dogs are in a place where they're sleeping, the dogs are in a place where they're sleeping and the camera picks them up, that'll be fine. But if the dogs are not in a place where they're sleeping and the camera's pointing there, I'm not going to change the camera. I made this video to tell people that I'm quitting, and I'm not quitting. I'm quitting YouTube, but I'm quitting the way that I'm doing things on YouTube. And so, especially if you're a kid and you're here and you're watching this, I have to tell you, I have to warn you right now as a kid that things are going to be changing on this channel. Yeah, I'm quitting the way I'm doing YouTube, Crystal. I'm quitting the way I'm doing YouTube. I never intended for this channel to turn out the way it has. It's nobody's fault but my own. It's nobody's fault but my own. I found myself doing something last night. that I got really pissed off at myself about. I got really pissed off at myself about it. And what it was I was sitting here and I didn't feed my dogs at 4 o'clock because I was waiting to feed my dogs until live stream, because my dogs were not eating their food, they were only eating treats. And I said to myself, this is not why you started this channel. You didn't start this channel to basically pimp your dogs out like a bunch of circus animals so that you could get clicks and get people to come watch your videos. I never started this channel for that reason. This channel was named High Desert Vet originally, and now it's named Backwood Vet. It has to do with me being a veteran. It has to do with things that I've hinted at on this channel before about talking about. Happy New Year? Where'd that come from? Where'd that come from? It's not Happy New Year. This channel was created to talk about issues related to stuff that some veterans go through, but many civilians go through as well, all across the world. It has to do with me talking about PTSD stuff, adult stuff, murder, things like that. Other things I'll talk about because you're a kid and you're here. And I just wanted to let you know that those videos are going to be coming out, and they're not going to be pretty videos. They're the same kinds of stuff that other veterans talk about. They're very heavy. And when I did that with my dogs last night, I said to myself, I said, your dogs are supposed to be a part of this story. They're not supposed to be the full story. And with me being mad right now, I'm mad at myself. I'm extremely angry with myself right now because I have let it come to this. This was never my intention. When I started the channel, I put a few videos up of the dogs because I thought people might like the dogs. And people started watching the dogs. I got 9,000 views on one of my first videos. And see, people are coming and going because they see me, but they don't see the dogs and are used to seeing the dogs. If I take this phone and I put it on her, and you watch the number of people who come into the room will explode. And that's what I got used to. I got used to watching that, and I became conditioned to it, just like anybody would. And then last night I'm sitting here, and I'm withholding my dog's food a few hours to keep them hungry so that they'll eat food on a camera so that I can get clicks. And I thought, you know, you're a real piece of shit, Dave. You're a real piece of shit that you're doing this with your dogs because, yeah, you achieved a goal of 1,000 subscribers, which is something you wanted to do, and now you're obsessed with 3,000 hours of watch time. Why? You have a good income. You have a car. You have heat. You have air conditioning. You have food. You're single. Your health is bad. Your kidneys are at stage 3. You have diabetes. You know, you should just be thankful that you have life and you're sitting here chasing watch time. So I said, screw it. That's not what I'm going to do anymore. I have some stories I've wanted to tell for a long time. Stories about things that that took place in Iraq, things that took place on my ship. All these different things, you know, and I've made friends with Callie. I've made friends with Softball Queen. I've made friends with Crystal. Friends as in live stream friends. But this is some heavy duty shit that I'm going to be talking about, kids. This is some heavy duty stuff. You know, when you're talking about slavery on U.S. military bases, when you're talking about soldiers dying for Chinese oil, when you're talking about $80 billion being spent on a war so that American soldiers can sit there and die for the Chinese who are now trying to screw us over. I'm not sad, Softball Queen. I'm pissed at myself. I'm pissed at myself because I've used my dogs like cheap circus props to try and gain clicks and to try and monetize myself when that was never the purpose of this channel anyways. War is barbaric, but war is politics, okay? That's what it is at the end of the day. I went to war once, and I'll tell you right now, straight up, I would go back in a second. I have no problems going back to war. War is a human condition. War is what men do. And now women. That's just the way it is. I was a sailor, and I'd go back to being a sailor if I could. I would. That's, you know, that's just the way it is. War is barbaric, and men are very barbaric. Men have been barbaric since the beginning of time, and they'll be barbaric until the last man breathes on the face of this earth. That's just the way it is. No, I actually don't, Softball Queen. I made this channel for adults. I really did. I made this channel for adults. Originally, I made this channel for adults, and I wanted to talk about adult issues. And I apologize that you were brought into this because of the dogs, and I made that mistake. That was my mistake. But I have to change the channel to do what my passion is about. I don't have a long time left on this planet. I've never talked about the state of my health. I've never talked about it at all because the joy that you guys see in the dogs is the joy that I get out of my dogs. My dogs are 4 and 6 years old. I don't know if I'll outlive my dogs. And that's not me asking for pity. That's not me asking for anything. I chose to live my life the way I chose to live it. That was nobody else's decision but my own. I put myself in the positions that I put myself into Some of them, okay, whatever, Patra. If that's what you want to think, that's what you want to think. Man is who man is, and you're not going to change it just because of America. There's 8 billion people on this planet, and we're 300 million of them. That's just the reality. But over the past few years, I've gotten off medications that people said you couldn't get off of. I was medically prescribed Xanax. I got off of Xanax. Okay, Patra, that's fine. Go ahead and argue all you want. I'm here to talk about something else. I'm not here to talk about what you're talking about. And yeah, I guess right now I am being kind of a prick, but that's just, you know, I have those moments. There's that sailor in me that comes out once in a while. And I guess you're seeing that side. And great. I'm glad we'll change. Thank you very much. You know, what I saw in the Navy and what I saw in Iraq, and what we're seeing in Iran right now, and what we're seeing in the Ukraine, and what we saw in Venezuela, and what we see in Africa with the Palestinians being forced into Sudan, what we see with all that, I guess I'm kind of jaded on that. But I have things that I want to talk about that, you know, I got off Xanax. I got off duloxetine. I got off Zyprexa. I got off of quetiapine. I can't remember what the name of that was. I've gotten off a lot of medications. I've taken my life from somebody who was sitting around on the couch getting stoned every day, eating a dozen donuts, drinking a gallon of milk, to somebody who's 170 pounds and I eat whole foods every day. And my life was going really good. Before I started YouTube, my life was going really good when I hit 1,000 subscribers. And then I fell into this hole. And I recognized the hole for what it was. And I said, I'm getting out of it. And I'm pissed right now, and I'm pissed at myself. I'm pissed at myself. I'm really pissed at myself because I lost my way. I am. I'm very jaded. I'm not jaded. I'm realistic. If you're talking about the whole war thing, Patra, I'm realistic. I've been there. I don't know if you have, but I have. You know, I have. And, you know, men are who men are. The hearts of men are the hearts of men. And if you think you can change it, go back and listen to what I just said. The hearts of men are the hearts of men. So that's where my channel, that's where I want it to go. That's what I want it to be. I want to have these talks with people about the things that are important. I want to have these talks with, you know, with veterans about, you know, be careful, you know, when you're in the military. Military sexual assault is a huge thing. It's a very big thing. It's a lot bigger than people realize. There's 2 people who are on this channel. One person who comes in here quite a bit, who was part of military sexual assault. He doesn't say who he is, and I'll never say who he is. But there's another person on this channel who was a part of military sexual assault. Doesn't consider himself a victim. Considers himself somebody who went through it and came out the other side. And that person is me. Twice. Once on the ship and once when I was getting out. And it took me 30 years to get over that. I was almost assaulted a 3rd time when I was over in Iraq, but I stopped it and I almost ended up taking the dude out. Okay? And so those are the things that I want to talk about on this channel to people. I tried to volunteer over at the VA a few years ago for guys who have been through that military sexual assault. And I called the woman and I said, I'd like to volunteer and talk to these guys and help out because I've been through the fire and I've been through the other side. And I would like to help these guys out. And she said, your help's not needed. And I said, why? And she said, because the psychiatrists tell us how many guys are out there but she says none of these guys will come forward like you do. And I volunteered at I called up a crisis center for that one night, or one day, and I said, I've been through this and I would like to volunteer. And they said, we'll get men who will wind up in the emergency room who have had this happen to them, and they won't even tell us who did it. So there's a few people out there who have talked about it, and it's been something that I've wanted to talk about for a long time. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, I didn't know why. But last October I made a decision that I was going to do it. And I haven't gotten to that point because I kept seeing kids coming into the channel. And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe this is your sign that you shouldn't talk about these things. And yet, deep in my heart, I was like, oh, you're pissing me off. You are pissing me off. You can leave. You can leave. You can leave, or else I'll help you leave. I'm sitting here talking about something with my people. So I appreciate you all. I will keep the dogs coming within reason. Within reason, but I don't want to feel like I have to be on here every night that I have. And it's not you guys, again, it's me. I hit one goal and I thought, okay, I hit this goal, now I have to hit this goal. How do I do that? It's like, well, you need to do live streams a lot, because I was getting a lot of traction on live streams. And it's like, I find myself doing all these live streams, and then people are like, and one of them was, and I hope you don't mind me saying who it was, but one of them was Guardian Angel. I mean, Guardian Angel comes up and she's like, how can I donate to the channel? And it's like, wow, I didn't even expect that. And then people kept coming in, they're like, wow, we'd like to buy your paintings. And I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that. And then all of a sudden I just found myself slowly but surely being pulled into this little monetization trap of no fault of anybody's but my own. And it's like, okay, well, now I need to chase the 3,000 watch hours. And, you know, as a content creator, when you're doing content, of course you want your content to be watched. And the easiest way to get your content watched is to make YouTube Shorts. And YouTube Shorts is based off of dopamine. I have a security clearance that prevents me from talking about a lot of stuff like this, but I understand the dopamine scroll. I worked on some intelligence and some information technology projects in Iraq that were precursors to YouTube and Facebook and stuff like that. And so I understand this stuff, but I found myself getting caught up in it of, you know, you make a YouTube short and people come in, they watch your dogs and they're like, oh man, that's amazing. And so you're like, well, somebody just found my fur baby's amazing. I'm going to make another video, and I'm going to make another video. And all of a sudden you're caught up in it. And I'm like, at some point you got to pull yourself out of this, dude. You got to pull yourself out of this, and you've got to go back to your original vision. Even if that original vision means that you're not going to get as many clicks right away. Even if that original vision means that you don't get a lot of clicks for 6 months. And you know, the thing about it is if you think that I'm sitting here asking you to click my videos out of like guilt or anything, that's exactly the opposite. And let me explain what I mean by that. The only way that you get better at doing anything is by failing. That's it. You don't get better at doing things by succeeding, because if you succeed, you're going to keep doing what you're doing. And a part of it hurts. Yeah, take care, Crystal. A part of it hurts to sit there and watch videos that you've made not gain. I'm quitting the way that I was doing YouTube. There's not going to be as much with the dogs anymore. I'll show you guys Denali real quick. You guys can say hi to her. There they are. You know, what I was saying, and I'm going to make video on this border collie because a lot of people are going to see this. I made this for a reason, so that I mainly did this border collie for the kids because the kids come into the live streams. They don't watch the long form videos. But the reason that I did it is because if one of these kids clicks on these long form videos that's coming up, they're gonna walk into a hornet's nest of topics that they're not prepared for. And I tested some of these topics out on shorts. I made a video about this tattoo. This tattoo is not your typical tattoo. I made a video on seeing women who were enslaved in Iraq. I made a shorts video on that. This video got like 500 views. The video on women being enslaved in Iraq, the shorts video got what? 400 or 500 views. I made a video about, a long form video about the baby, the pig in the pot. And that got 70 or 80 views. Those videos are important to me. This video or this tattoo is called the Bloody Swallow. This tattoo is called the Bloody Crow. This tattoo is about a buddy of mine who got murdered on the ship. This tattoo is about a buddy of mine who died from AIDS when straight men didn't die from AIDS. And so this guy got remembered in the cruise book. This guy didn't. That has always bugged me for 40 years. And this guy was my mentor. That's the word that they use these days. And in the Navy back then, they used a different word. He was like somebody who you aspired to be like. He was an amazing, amazing sailor. He was an amazing sailor. I was in the Gulf War, and I was in the Navy in the 80s. But this guy, he was gay. He was gay in the 80s when you weren't gay in the 80s. Oh my gosh, you're back again. And yet he was somebody who I looked up to, and I miss him as much as I miss this guy. And when I made this tattoo video and I saw it got 500 views, I guess that was one of those moments where it's like, people are here for the dogs. Would you shut up? Would you really shut up? Oh man. I'm never going to refuse to go to war, especially for my country. I'm 58 years old, and if they called me up today and said, we need you to go back to war, I'd be right there. I would be right there right now. I'll just tell you that right now. I didn't think that the Gulf War was a good war at all. No, it was a war for the defense contractors. It was not a war that was, they've called them the forever wars. I was in the military with guys from Vietnam. Some amazing dudes. But the first night that I really realized what it meant to be in the military was somebody from Vietnam, because of course, Vietnam it ended in 1975 and I joined the military in 1986. So most of the guys who were senior guys in the Navy at that time were Vietnam veterans. And I just gotten out of boot camp and I went to my A school, and we had a guy who was like a proctor or a class leader, and he stayed with us every night, in our barracks. And the first night he got us together, and, he said, and this goes back to the Forever Wars part, he said, don't come into the barracks at night. If you need me when I'm asleep and touch me here, he goes, I'll pick you up and I'll throw you through that fucking wall and I'll kill you. And everybody's just sitting there and they're stunned. And they're like, we don't understand. And he goes, they sent me to Vietnam and I hate Vietnam. He goes, the only reason that I stay in is because I want to get my 20 years so I get my pension and my medical benefits, because I'm so messed up. And that was my introduction to the Forever Wars. The Forever Wars are wars that we fought that weren't fought on our soil to protect our country. You know, I know guys who were victims of Agent Orange. You know, I did a video out there about, you know, a long form video about a woman who was called Angel. You know, I'm telling you about these videos a little bit, but if you want to see them, go watch them. She told me an amazing story, you know. Um, these people went through real stuff. That's the stuff that I want to talk in videos about. That doesn't surprise me. I'm surprised they didn't take him out. I'm surprised they didn't take him out. I really am. I know that the Germans did that in World War II. They took him out. But, you know, I'd go back for my country, but I don't know if I'd go back to forever war. Forever wars, they're a totally different, how do I say this? If you take a country like Russia and a country like China, or you take a country like China and a country like India, who have borders, they don't like each other, but you don't see them going in and attacking each other and sending thousands of troops and building military bases every 5 years. The thing about the United States, and this was told to me by a senior non-commissioned officer, he told me, he said, the reason that we go to war at least every 10 years or every 20 years, I'll talk about that in a minute, Border Collie. This guy said the reason that America goes to war every 5 or every 10 to 20 years at the max, and if you look back from Vietnam until now, this cycle has followed itself up until today, as we speak, with what's going on in Iran. He said, which it's true, the U.S. military runs on a 20-year cycle. Guys come in, they get out after 20 years. He says the United States believes that we always have to have troops who have experienced combat within our ranks at all times to lead troops who haven't. So we will go to war every 10 to 20 years to make sure that we have senior enlisted who can guide troops through combat if they've never been through combat before. Vietnam, Grenada, the barracks in Beirut, the first Gulf War, Mogadishu, the second Gulf War, Abbey Gate, and now Iran. Every 20 years. The other reason, and this was a quote that was made by a guy who was running for president, and it also run for senator, and this quote was a quote that I read when I was in Iraq. And this man said, he goes, the United States' biggest welfare system is the Defense Department. And he said, we have to go to war to keep the nation running because the nation is built on the defense structure of what they call the military-industrial complex. And if the military-industrial complex, which is businesses, such as Boeing, such as Raytheon, such as other ones, if those businesses are not producing products, those people are not employed. And if those people are not employed, they're not making money and the economy suffers. It's a fact. It's a fact. It's a fact. And so that's the forever wars. When you hear military veterans, when you hear politicians talk about the forever wars, that's what the forever wars are. From basically, people don't like to hear this, but basically from World War I until now, everything's been a forever war, because the Japanese launched one balloon that was supposed to start forest fires. It happened about 50 miles away from where I lived, where the balloon landed. That's the only attack that's happened on the United States, the Twin Towers happened. That was not a nation. That was a terrorist organization. Things have changed since 2001 regarding that. But for the homeland to be attacked by where it would be a threat to our way of life and our security, I'm talking China, Russia, India, Brazil, countries that could threaten our way of life. We haven't had that. So I don't even know what I was talking about here, but Border Collie, how do you get treated nowadays being a veteran? You know, I'm going to do a video on this because I had something happen to me that I'm not going to say that it was life changing. It was kind of reality changing. And what it was is I was standing, I think, in Walmart, and I really don't wear a lot of military gear, you know, like the bling, I call them the bling bling hats, you know, the blue hats, and they've got the ribbons and everything all over them. I personally don't wear that. That's just me. I don't have anything against the guys who do it, but I didn't have anything on that even indicated that I was from the military. And we got to talking, and she's like, "Well, were you in the military?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, thank you for your service." And when she said that to me, it was the way that she was looking at me. And I really do want to make a video on this because I think she looked at me, and the amount of appreciation, the amount of, I guess, love that this woman had for me, it made me shiver. It made me shiver in a good way. And it's a moment that I'll never forget because, you know, I knew that, you know, after the Gulf War, America really rallied around its troops, and it was a beautiful thing. It was a very beautiful thing. But I had never really, you know, talked about being a veteran with people, things of that nature. You know, I did, but this interaction that I had with this woman, it was a very meaningful, very sentimental interaction. And it made me really appreciate what I had seen happen after the first Gulf War and the way that people rallied around the American people, or around the American military, the way that this woman acted towards me, because it's like she took the time out of her day, she took the time out of her life, she took the energy from within herself and poured it into me and said, "Man, thank you so much. I love you for what you've done." And I'm like, I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say. I don't know how to give this back to this woman in a way that she deserves. I don't know how to love her the way that she's loving me right now, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It was humbling. It was beautiful. And I'll see veterans these days, and I think Marky Mark is a veteran. Hey, Two Skulls. I think Marky Mark is a veteran. I think he'll understand what I'm saying. You know, you'll get out there and you'll be in the store and you'll see some guy, he'll be all blinged out with the blue hat, you know, the Navy or Marines t-shirt on, the jackets and all that. And he'll be out there and he'll be like, you know, somebody will come up and they'll be like, "Oh man, you were in the military. Thank you for your service. Thank you so much for your service." And this dude will go into, "Oh yeah, I was here, I was there, I did this, I did that. I'm so great for this, I'm so great for that." And it's like, dude, would you shut the F up? Would you shut the F up right now and stop whatever it is that you're doing with your little program of "I'm so great because I'm a veteran," because you're not. You're not great because you're a veteran. The most honorable thing, the most selfless sacrifice, and the humblest thing that you could do was to be a veteran. Was to say, "I love my country this much, I appreciate my country this much, that I was willing to go be a veteran. And when somebody comes up to you and says, thank you for your service, my attitude now, especially now after what I experienced with that woman, is I'm going to take everything that that person has said to me, and I'm going to put it back on them. And I'm going to be like, you know what? You're amazing. You're a beautiful person. You're an American. I love you very much. It was an honor to serve you. They don't want to hear about me, man. They, you know, they may, especially what I did. I held a paintbrush for 3 years. Not a big thing. You know, I wasn't a Navy SEAL. I wasn't any of that crap, you know. And I wasn't in a hot war as a veteran. So the fact that somebody even takes the time to recognize the fact that I'm a veteran, that moment needs to be turned around and reflected back on them and let them know this is about you. This is not about me at all. Um, you know, service for your country is about the homeland. It's about the people. It's about the, you know, I told this kid, I can't remember when, he was talking about, you know, exactly what Marky Mark is saying right here. And there's another guy comes in here. You know, if you all don't see it, Marky Mark says, I acknowledge it when they say thank you, but I realize I was only one small part of a bigger picture. And that's totally the, you know, I know that Marky Mark has seen these people out there. I know that he's seen these people, you know, these guys who get in there and they're like, it's all about me. And it's like, man, you just want to go up and just slap the living shit out of these dudes. You know, that's great that you serve. That's great. But, you know, I told this kid a couple months ago, I said, man, I said, if you're really going to serve your country, I said, you need to understand, you know, that you may lose your life for your country. There's you know, the weapons of war are so much more deadly now than they were even 10 years ago. And I said, if you're going to give your life for your country, I said, we always think about giving our life. And I don't know why I came up with this. I'm not a genius. But I said, it's easy to think about giving your life for your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, people you went to high school with, people you love, people you care about. But I said, if you really want to think, is it worth it to serve my country and is it worth it to give my life for my country? Ask yourself, am I willing to give my life for somebody I can't stand? If you can give your life for somebody that you can't stand, then you really, really want to serve your country. Because you're going to be giving your life for everybody. And, you know, that's what being a veteran is. You know, I think we, you know, it's always been for thousands of years, you know, in order for militaries to recruit, you know, it used to be mercenaries, soldiers of fortune, things of that nature. You know, they pay these guys big money thousands of years ago. Now it's the college fund, the GI Bill, retirement, things of that nature. So there's always going to be an enticement to bring people into the military, to have them join the military, you know, to have them stay in the military. There's always going to be that financial enticement. But this country, well, I can't say this country because I was in Iraq with other countries and there was a lot of patriotism with those countries as well. I can't say that any country doesn't have a certain level of patriotism, but at the end of the day, soldiers don't fight for free. And so, you know, you're going to need a financial incentive, but if you're going to really go out there and, you know, put yourself out there as a bullet catcher, you have to have a reason that's greater than money. You know, you really do. Okay, well, help me out on this, Marky Mark. My son don't like to talk about him being in the military, Afghanistan or Iraq. So how do I talk to him about it? I think he's feeling down. This isn't going to answer your question, but it's going to answer your question. When I came back from Iraq, this is another video I was going to make. Hold on, girl. Hold on. There you go. When I came back from Iraq, they put me on a lot of meds. They put me on a lot of meds. If you guys know anything about Chris Beck's story, the only thing that I didn't do when I was on all those meds that was bad, and I'm telling a lot of things tonight that I haven't ever said on this channel before, but the only thing that Chris Beck did, and he's a Navy SEAL who became transgender, and they called him the, what did they call him? The Warrior Princess. He was a SEAL Team 6 guy who went through transgender surgery and all that. So what does this have to do with Diane's question? When I came back from Iraq, they put me on a lot of medications, and my emotions were already gone from my PTSD, but any emotions I had left were stripped away from me. I was, for all intents and purposes, I was soulless. I wasn't soulless in a negative way where I was going to go out and hurt anybody. I was, they call it emotional flatlining, I think is what they call it. And maybe this helps you, Diane, because of what I'm describing. Emotional flatlining, you know, I used to love to go hunting, fishing, skiing, surfing. I loved my mom, I loved my dad. I had pleasure and I had enjoyment in things. When I came back from Iraq, I had nothing. Nothing. I would sit in my room all day, I'd play video games, I'd drink Mountain Dew, I'd eat donuts, I was chewing a can and a half of tobacco every day, and that was my life. And I walked in one day to my mom, what Marky Mark is saying, talking to another vet. Support groups today that you see, modern day support groups, those support groups, civilian support groups, were a result of the Vietnam War. When those guys came back from Vietnam, they had nobody but each other, and so they started coming together, started forming support groups, and that's where the modern day support group came from. But I have a personal message for Diane. So one day, I felt nothing towards anybody, towards anything. And I was even starting to lose feeling and emotion towards my dog. So I walked into my mom's office and I looked at my mom and I said, Mom, and my mom's gone now, but I found this out later. What I'm about to tell you, I found out later because I don't remember doing this. My ex-wife told me about this after my mom passed away. She said, you did this, and I believe my ex-wife. I don't remember doing this. I walked in and I said to my mom, I said, Mom, I don't love you. And she turned around, she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, that's okay. She said, I have enough love for both of us. And so that's the message that I have for you, Diane, is I never even told anybody that I've been sexually assaulted for 30 years. I never told anybody. Nobody. And the first time I told anybody, I got the response that I feared that I was going to get, which was, oh, you're gay. No, I'm not gay. And that response was from my mom. And I know my mom didn't mean it in the way that it came out, but that's what happened. And when my mom said, that's okay, I have enough love for both you and me, that was her way of letting me know that you know, no matter what happened to me, you know, when I was in the Navy, no matter what happened to me when I was in Iraq, no matter what happened to my buddies who died, nothing like that, no matter what happened, and no matter how it affected my life, that she was still my mom. And that she, you know, she loved me regardless, which I know that you do, Diane, because you're sitting here asking about your son to somebody who, you know, you've never met and never will meet in person. And, you know, that shows how much you love your son. I mean, it's obvious through text. And so that would be my suggestion to you is you know, is you can't love enough. you can hate enough, you know, which is what that woman was getting at earlier. You know, that woman made me mad, and she still makes me mad coming in here. Men are barbaric, men are this, men are that. Yeah, yeah, they are. And you're not going to change that. And if you think men aren't barbaric, go back to rule number one, which is men are barbaric. But at the end of the day, you can't love enough. You can hate enough, but love will never. Oh man, we're getting into some deep philosophical shit. Love will never exhaust you. It may feel like it's going to exhaust you, but love will never exhaust you no matter how hard it is. In the short term, and we've all experienced this. It doesn't matter if you've been to war or not. Hate and anger and all that can be energizing, but it's kind of like caffeine. It's fake energy. Love is not fake. As long as you don't make, love is not fake. You can fake love, but love itself is not fake. And at some point, love will energize you. Yeah, if you ever need to talk, man, back channel me. We'll figure out a way to get together. There's another veteran on here who I talked to, and he's been through some similar stuff that I have. But that's what I was getting at, people. I unloaded on a bunch of kids earlier, Marky Mark, because I told him, I said, I made this channel. I said, I realized it was my fault for making this channel and making this channel about dogs and everything and about the dopamine and all that. But I said, I made this channel, you know, I used the title vet. You know, I didn't realize people would think I was a veterinarian, especially having 2 dogs on the channel. But I said, I made this channel to talk to veterans and to Americans, or even people in general, about things that I've experienced, you know, that brought about my disabilities. Because my disabilities, well, one of 3 things that caused my PTSD was preventable. The other 2 weren't. You know, the things I experienced in Iraq, I didn't have to go to Iraq, you know, and I could have left Iraq at any time. I didn't have an enlistment, so my choice to be in Iraq was my choice. And whatever I experienced over there was my decisions, not anybody else's. But I want to, you know, it's not so much that I think that I'm a guru on anything. I guess my philosophy is there's a veteran who made a video one night, and the way that he talked in this video, he said it in a way that I'd never heard it before. And because he said it that way, I made the changes in my life that I made to become more positive, you know, to go from 230 pounds to 172, to walking my dog, to, you know, getting up, making my bed every day. You know, because he said it. And so my attitude, my philosophy for making this channel was not for me to come across as this guru who's figured it all out, because I haven't figured it all out. But the things that I have figured out, I may be able to say it in a way to somebody out there who's like, oh, the way that he said it connects with me. I don't expect to connect with 1 million people. I don't expect to change 1 million people's lives. I don't expect that at all. I'm doing what I'm doing because of what somebody did for me. And, you know, it's not just this veteran. And I don't name this veteran. I've talked about him in the past, but I don't name him anymore because there's a lot of toxic stuff going on within certain parts of the veteran community that I don't want to even acknowledge right now. When you have a bunch of guys who can't even figure out who killed Osama bin Laden, you've got a problem. But, you know, guys like, Dr. Huberman, he's a fantastic resource for everything brain related. Diane, Dr. Huberman, Mark, can you write that in chat? Marky Mark, Dr. Huberman from Stanford. Dr. Huberman is a neurologist, and he does a lot of stuff with just. Uh, Dr. Huberman's a good resource. He's a good place to start, Diane. Um, and if I think of anybody else, you know, I'm gonna tell you something, Diane, that's probably gonna save you a lot of grief, because my dad did this with me, and unfortunately, my dad and I really aren't close anymore after my mom passed. But my dad was doing this with me. He was saying, "Son, go volunteer. Go volunteer." And it's like, you know, that sounded like more of a burden than it did an encouragement, because volunteer, and you've seen me do it recently with the dogs on the channel. You know, these dogs I've been posting, that is actually something passionate about and that I would like to continue doing with the channel. But understand, you understand your son. Yeah, Andrew David Huberman at Stanford University. Yes, that's the man I'm talking about. Um, Now, I'm going to talk about something here that could actually get me booted off YouTube, so I want you to write this down. It's not going to get me booted off YouTube, but it could flag my channel. But it's being done out there these days, Diane. It's being done, and it's being done successfully. But it has to, your son has to be in a place, and he's going to be, trust me, he's going to be in a place at some point where he's going to be open to these things. So I'm going to share them with you. Write them down. Write them down, because I'm putting myself at risk here, okay? What? Was that a typo? I'm hoping that was a typo, Ty Hughes. I think that was a typo. I'm hoping that was a typo. So, okay, the first one is not going to be controversial. It's called hyperbaric oxygen therapy treatment. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Marky Mark may know about this because he was I think that he was a medic. And I know he was in the Navy, so he was a corpsman. He actually had cush duty. I'm just joking, Marky Mark. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is something that the VA is researching. I asked them to send me to it. They wouldn't, because they're just researching it. But hyperbaric oxygen therapy basically goes in, reoxygenates your body, and they've seen a lot of benefits with it with PTSD. The other one, here we go, psychedelic therapy. Well, I just got flagged. I just got flagged, man. I just got flagged. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's, you know what? I don't care if it was Kush. It's like you said, you were a small part of a much bigger system, just like I was. You counted pills, I held a paintbrush and a needle gun, okay? But the way I always looked at it is this: if somebody didn't keep the rust off the ship, there wouldn't be a ship that floated. Okay, psychedelic therapy. Does it work? Go do research on veterans and psychedelic therapy, or PTSD and psychedelic therapy. It's out there. There's everything from, okay, here we go. Here we go. I'm about to get demonetized before I get demonetized. Okay. But you know what? If this helps another veteran, Diane, I'm all in on this, okay? I am all in on it. Okay. Look this up, Marky Mark. Look this up for me. You're helping me out here. You're kind of being my transcriber. I think it's called The Mission Within. I think that's who it's called. And what they're doing is, oh gosh, oh shit, man. Oh shit, here we go. Everything I'm about to talk about is Schedule 1, Class 1. Okay. Ibogaine therapy. Okay. YouTube's AI is going to hammer me on that one. DMT therapy. mushrooms, ayahuasca, and the one that I use, Amanita. Oh, man. Okay, well, if you guys don't see me here tomorrow, you'll know why. Um, so I'm really not too big on talking about the special operations guys right now because of all the crap that they're causing for veterans on social media. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but they um, they uh, they go to the mission within. You can look it up. It's ibogaine therapy in Tijuana, California. They have the retreat down in Tijuana. I think they also have one in the Caribbean island somewhere for the psychedelic mushrooms. Um, they Ibogaine is not allowed in the United States because it's a Schedule One drug. And yet you talk to anybody who's done Ibogaine and they will tell you they never want to do it again. Schedule One drugs are meant that they're highly addictive. Nobody wants to go back and do them. So there's Ibogaine, um, the psychedelic mushrooms, oh gosh, they call them magic mushrooms, psychedelic. So the magic mushrooms, um, you know, there's also a lot that's been done with those. Um, they down at the mission within, they use ibogaine in conjunction with DMT. It's a synthetic version of some frog spit. Um, yeah, frog spit or something. And so they do the two of them. They do them in a weekend, and it basically goes in. It's a master reset in your brain. I was saving up to go to that. I'll tell you why I didn't. I'm on a medication. I got off of Xanax. I got off of quetiapine. I got off of 3 or 4 medications to prepare myself to go back to work in 2022. And then I got off of a medication called duloxetine to prepare myself because I was going to go to ibogaine therapy. Because when my mom died, just like when a lot of other people have died in my life, I wasn't able to cry because the night that my shipmate was murdered, it spun me out, and I've never been able to cry. And so I wanted to go to ibogaine therapy because I wanted to be able to cry, you know, because my mom had died. But I'm on a medication called lamotrigine, and I have to go off lamotrigine to go to ibogaine therapy. And lamotrigine is a medication I've been on for so long that it scares me to think about going off of it because I've been on it since 2011, which is like 14 years. I feel like it's so deeply reshaped my reality that for me to go off of it, it scares me. It scares me to think that I would have to live my life the way that you all do, unmedicated. That scares me very bad. To think about having to do that. And so I didn't go off the lamotrigine. And the other reason I didn't go off the lamotrigine is because lamotrigine suppresses nicotine cravings, and I would have to be off the lamotrigine for 60 days to go to the ibogaine therapy because lamotrigine affects your heart rate, blah, 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 and the two of them counteract and you could die. So 60 days, you know, I've had withdrawals from medications where 60 seconds felt like 10 years. And to think about 60 days is just too much for me to absorb. So I decided that I could stay on lamotrigine the rest of my life, or I could try to put myself through something that may not work in the end to try to accomplish something that may not be worth it in the end. I don't know if I just said the same thing twice, but anyways, I was going to go. Unfortunately, I won't be able to at this point. The other thing that I do, I have used Amanita. Amanita is a very controversial mushroom. The reason it's very controversial is because people don't have a modern understanding of Amanita. And the reason is a lot of people will look at Amanita as, this is my research that I've done, okay? This is just what I've seen. I guess in YouTube you have to put disclaimers out there about medical advice. So this is what I researched, is Amanita is a health food. It's a short-term health food with psychedelic or psychedelic type properties. Where, yes, I have done the magic mushrooms. No, I haven't done them for, gosh, it cracks me up when they say recreational purposes. I haven't done them for recreation. I did microdosing. I haven't taken a full trip of magic mushrooms. I took a small amount. And Amanita and magic mushrooms are very different. Amanita is like, I microdosed Amanita, but it's kind of weird because Amanita, to get back to the where people have a problem with Amanita, is Amanita is in the same family as the death cap mushroom. It's the same family. And so the mushrooms, well, they're in the same family. They, from what I've seen, look very different. But Amanita has something in it that if you take it long term, or if you take massive amounts of it, okay, you're talking massive amounts, you got to be like a dumbass to take the amount of Amanita that would affect your liver. And then there's ways you can cook it, process it to decrease this stuff in there. But I took Amanita off and on for, and when I say off and on, I'd be like 2-3 days on, then 2-3 days off. I took Amanita for 6 months, and I still take it once in a while. I've never had it affect me. And there's YouTube forums with hundreds of thousands, or not YouTube, but Reddit forums with a couple 100,000 users. I don't know, because I got kicked off Reddit a couple years ago, so I don't know what the number is now. But doctors, people have written books on Amanita where if you use it as a health food source, as a medication, and you follow, either ancient shamanistic protocols, if you follow, all right, we'll see you later, Irish. If you follow and treat Amanita as a powerful health food, it can be very helpful for you, because I used it to get off Xanax, me personally. And when I used it to get off Xanax, I had no withdrawals, me personally. The guy who has the Amanita company that I buy my Amanita from also used it to get off of Xanax and other benzodiazepines. So it has that capability. Again, you use it as a health food. It's legal in all 50 states. Or no, it's legal in 49 of 50 states. It has the controversy because if you go out there and you do a Google search on it, it's going to come back with, this thing is poisonous, this thing is this thing is that. It's also going to tell you the same thing about soursop. Soursop is almost as powerful as chemotherapy. So, kind of make your own decisions on that. But I turned to Amanita. I turned to Amanita quite a bit. And I think it's a very, very powerful natural healing option. I just think that people need to, I hate the term do your own research, but yeah, you need to do your own research. You need to read up on it, understand it, ask the questions that you need to ask. And then, I microdose it. I don't do the full on, because if you do the full on, it's much different than the magic mushrooms, and things may not end well for you. It's not going to take your life, but it can be a very horrifying experience. But there's a big there's a big gap between microdosing safely versus getting up here where the stupid people go. You have to go way up. There's a big difference. And I started down here and I started down here at the bottom. Found a very therapeutic experience with it. And so the next one, since we're throwing all the Schedule 1s and all the illegals out there, once a month I do ketamine. Aha. Yes, I do ketamine prescription. I have a nurse practitioner who I speak with once a month. I get a prescription dosage of ketamine. There's companies out there who do ketamine. There's Interwell. There's Better You. There's oh gosh, there was one that I went through, but they're microdosing ketamine now. And um, Dr. Huberman talks about ketamine. There's quite a few neurologists out there who talk about the benefits of microdosing ketamine. So it is a valid medically researched way to deal with PTSD, depression, anxiety. The one thing that I will tell you about psychedelics, specifically ketamine, oh my gosh. Mark, if I'm not here tomorrow, you want my phone number? Okay, so if you're doing these, the one thing that I saw was any of you guys listen to Shinedown? Anybody in here listen to Shinedown? Gosh, I wish there were people in here who listen to Shinedown. They'd crack up over this one. So when you do psychedelics, what they tell you is they say sit down and in your mind think about, and they do what's called set an intention. So you sit down and you're like, okay, what do I want to accomplish in this psychedelic experience? Okay, I'm here. I've experienced these combat scenarios. I want to work through them. I want to purge this from my system. I want to come out better. And it's about being intentional. It's about really thinking about that and, just opening your brain to it biologically, just opening your brain and getting your brain open so that you can think about, those things. And then, because what happens is especially with ketamine, when you're doing ketamine basically just takes the filters off. It takes the filters off your brain, or off your thinking, positive and negative. So you're really in a very exposed state. And I don't like to use ketamine a lot because you're in a very fragile state, and I have my dogs, and if somebody broke into my house, right, that's why they have what are called trip sitters, people who sit with you when you're doing, hey Kathy, when you're doing psychedelics, because you are at risk, and so setting intention, you want to set that intention and you want to think about it, so that when you go into that psychedelic experience, the things that you want to work on or the things that you want to deal with are right there and they're ready to be dealt with in a positive manner. So here's what dumbass did. I'm the dumbass. So the first few times that I did ketamine, I set my intentions. Okay, Marky Mark. I set my intentions the first few times. I sat down, I was doing some journaling, went in, had my ketamine experience. I gotta tell you guys about this one. So I went in, I had my ketamine experience, my first one. I came out, I felt refreshed, I felt really good. And so this one blew my mind. I guess we're sitting here bullshitting, just a few of us, and thank you for listening. So third time, my mom was still alive, and I had taken my ketamine, and usually ketamine has about a 20-minute delayed onset. And so I took my ketamine, and I'm sitting there, laying on my bed, and you're supposed to hold it in your mouth and swish it around. So I'm pulling my mouth, swishing around. I get a text message. It's from my mom, and she says something to me. And so I look at the text message, and I'm like, okay. And I write her a sentence back, and I set the phone down. And all of a sudden, whoosh, and damn, man, people are going to think I'm weird. So it's like whoosh. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm just out there, man. And I'm hearing all these beautiful sounds, and it feels like I've been gone for thousands of years and millions of years. And yeah, I really am cruising the universe, man. I hope y'all are laughing because so I'm cruising the universe. And so all of a sudden I'm laying there and I hear this sound, boop. Well, when my mom had text messaged me, I had looked at the message the first time, and it said, I think it was like 7:20 or 7:30 p.m. And so I do my ketamine and I go flying off into the universe and exploring and doing all that. And then I come down out of my ketamine experience. I didn't know I was down out of it. I was just, all of a sudden I hear this boop, and I open up my text messages, and it's from my mom, and she's like, yeah, your dad and I are okay with that. And I looked at the timestamp next to it, and it was 7:45 p.m. I felt like I was gone forever, man. I was just like, man, and it was like only 15 minutes. So fortunately, the point that I'm getting at, would y'all laugh? That was like kind of funny. The point I'm getting at with ketamine is very, it will, it will take you out of your reality and leave you vulnerable, but it's also compared to like psychedelic mushrooms, which will take you out for 24 or 48 hours. Um, Ketamine is it's very short acting. Um, but the one time it was about a month after I'd started doing it, about a month and a half after I started doing it, I was pretty good about setting my intentions and sitting down and writing stuff down. And one night, for some reason, I forgot to do that. And yeah, you better laugh at this one too, Marky Mark, especially if you listen to Shinedown. So I lay down on my bed, and I'd found this playlist of music that I would listen to during the ketamine experience. It was really cool. And man, one night I had this amazing experience um, on ketamine, where I was walking through this beautiful. It wasn't like one of those like you hear on Joe Rogan or anything. It was a very balanced experience. I was walking through this large area, and there were these beautiful white sphinx and pyramids, and they were just all arranged. And I was just walking through this area in my mind, watching these pyramids and these sphinx, and I was like, wow, these things are just very beautiful. And I just felt like I was really grounded and really in the moment, and I was able to deal with a lot of stuff at that point. It was a very, very good experience. I came out and I was refreshed and I felt good. And so I've been listening to that music, and so I'd put on my headphones earlier before I took my ketamine that night, and I was listening to Shinedown. And so I went out and I cooked some dinner. I had my headphones on, and my ketamine was on the counter there. And I took the little lozenge and I popped it in. Hi, Neon. Oh, no. I took the lozenge, I popped it in my mouth, the ketamine. I'm walking around listening to Shinedown. So, dummy me, I didn't sit down and write down my intentions and do all the things I'm supposed to do that I had made a habit of. I lay down on my bed and I'm listening to this song by Shinedown called Monsters. And it's like, my monsters are real, blah, blah, blah. It's about mental illness. And I'm laying there, and all of a sudden that ketamine hit. And when the ketamine hit, what it does is it just releases all your sensory, and your senses and your nerves become much more acute and much more sensitive. And when that hit, and this guy's singing "My Monsters Are Real," oh my gosh, I would never recommend that anybody does that. Listen to the, listen to the nice soft music, because boy, whew, man, I came out of that experience, and that one hurt. So, my suggestion is follow my advice on ketamine if you're going to do it. But that's one of the things that you can again research. I don't suggest that anybody gets involved in psychedelic medication programs unless they are 110% aware of what it is that they're getting into. And you have, I don't agree with how they handle the psychedelic portion of ibogaine. What they do is they call it a ceremony. Okay, so you go down there, and again, you're setting your intentions, you're writing things down of what it is that you want to experience when you're in this psychedelic experience with ibogaine. And so ibogaine is going in, and it takes ibogaine 12 hours to go in and work through your system. They have buckets for you to sit up and vomit in. They have nurses who are taking your EKG. They're monitoring your blood pressure. They're pumping fluids into you. I mean, it's a heavy duty experience. They have a whole staff of nurses around. Um, there we go. From the horse's mouth, huh, Marky Mark? Um, but what I don't agree with ibogaine, and maybe Marky Mark can back me up off of that one with what he just said. The other thing I don't agree with ibogaine is going in at such a deep level. They actually say that it goes in at the cellular level and reworks your brain. But it's reshaping your reality. You go in with one reality, heavy with PTSD, heavy with all these different things, and then you come out and everything's been stripped of you, and you're sent back into society within 48 hours. A totally new person, a totally new way of thinking, a totally new mindset. My personal thought is, if you're going to push people into an ibogaine DMT experience, you need to give them about 5 or 6 days afterwards to kind of sit with themselves and reintegrate and let their chemical balance rebalance. They take these guys down there on Friday, hit them with ibogaine on Friday night and Saturday, and they have them back on a plane on Sunday. I'm like, man, that's a lot. That's a lot. Okay, Neon. I'm quitting the way that I'm doing the channel. I am quitting the way that I'm working with the dogs. I feel like I've been using the dogs as props. I've lost my way with the way that I'm going to do my channel, the way that I'm going to talk about things, the types of videos. I'll still do, the dogs will still be a part of my videos, but my videos are about veteran related content. They're about heavy duty topics that are adult related. When I first started this channel, a lot of kids started joining the channel, which that's not a bad thing or that's not a good thing. I followed YouTube's guidance. I made sure that my channel was targeted, or my channel settings were set up so that the channel was not made for kids. And yet I found a bunch of kids coming in here, and I wanted to make my content about deeper topics, and yet my content kept becoming about the dogs. And Gabriel, you're another one. And so I'm switching my channel over to that heavy duty type content, and I'm going to lose subscribers over it, and that's okay, because the long-term goal of my channel is to get the information out that I want to get out. You'll still see the dogs, you'll see plenty of the dogs, but if I come live, I want to be able to come live and not feel like I need to spend 25 minutes feeding my dogs treats to keep everybody happy who's coming into the room, which was on me. That wasn't on anybody else. I got it out of my system earlier. I was ranting, I was raving. I feel much better. But that was on me because I trained the channel that way. Nobody else did. Um, you know, I was getting positive feedback from feeding the dogs. You know, if the dogs were on here right now, there would not be 7 viewers. There would be 35. There would be 30. Thank you, Aloha. That's nice. I appreciate it. You know, there would be 35 viewers on here, and I got used to that. And I somewhere at some point decided to set a goal that I needed all this watch time to monetize. And so Neon, that's where this is all coming from. I'm an adult. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to deal with kids if I had to because I've never had kids. I talk about adult related topics. You know, I mean, it's hard for me to be on live streams because I'm the type of guy, you know, I cuss a lot. You know, I've had people, you know, who've come in here and I've just wanted to rip them a new asshole because of the things that they were saying about the dogs. Yeah, you know, the thing about it is, Marky Mark, is what I would like to do is I would like to start doing live stream podcasts and bring people on. You know, I would like to promote my channel and veteran groups over on Facebook, but you can't. And I get that, you know, if they let one person do it, they'd have to let everybody do it. But, you know, I would like to do podcasts and stuff with people probably like yourself who have been through the rough stuff and then worked through it and come out the other side, you know, and healthy living, you know, balanced diets, good sleep, routine. You know, I'll tell you one of the, Diane, if you're still here, when your son's ready, I'll give you one of the greatest life hacks that I have. And I remembered it from the military. And then I saw Admiral McCraven, which he's a very divisive character in and of himself, make a video on it called Make Your Bed. And when I got off my medications and was making all these changes in my life for the positive, I thought I need something to do when I get up in the morning that's a routine that starts my day. And so I got up and I started making my bed. And I found, I mean, you know, I found that when I got up and made my bed, I was like, man, you know, you've done something right away. And then I thought, hold on, in boot camp, what was the first thing that they made you do when you got up and you made your bed? And then Admiral McCraven came out with this video talking about how the Navy SEALs and in BUDS training, it's like, dude, did you go to officer candidates or boot camp? They made us do that too. But he was like, Navy SEALs, you make your bed. You always make your bed. But I found out that there's 2 things about that. You get up in the morning and make your bed. It's your first win for the day. Then I go right in, I take my morning medication. So I have 2 wins right there. I would use the live stream for my podcasts. And it's not necessarily that I want to just talk to other veterans, you know. Veterans have, you know, I want to finish the bed thing first because there's another one. The one thing that I figured out about making your bed that is probably the greatest benefit of all for me now, and I actually have to go do this because I have to get off the live stream here in a minute to do this, but the biggest benefit is not getting up in the morning and making your bed. The biggest benefit is when I go into my room at night to go to bed, I don't look at this messy bed. I don't look at this messy room. I don't look at this uncluttered place that reminds me of my mind. I look at a neat bed, ready to go, ready to pull the sheets back. They're fresh, they're nice, and my day is complete. And when I look at a complete, uncluttered, bed that is not messy, I don't feel as though I have an uncluttered, messy mind. And that is the biggest win for me, is you walk in and the last thing that you see before you go to bed is the first win that you had for the day. You can't beat that. You cannot beat that, because you're looking at yourself 12 hours before when you got up. And I'll tell you something. I started this back in 2023, and I've missed making my bed twice. Twice. And when I miss making my bed, I haven't felt guilty. I haven't felt disappointed. I haven't felt any of that. What I've felt is I've felt awareness. I've felt aware. I've said, okay, why did you not make your bed? Okay, I didn't make my bed for this reason, this reason. It had nothing to do with depression, or it had nothing to do with anything like that. But whatever reason you didn't have to make your bed, you still didn't do it. So don't go back. Don't bash yourself over the head about it. Don't just tomorrow morning when you get up, make your bed. And I've even gone so far as to tell my dad, or, you know, at the time my ex-wife was living with me, if I get up, she had moved back in as a roommate for a while. If I get up and you walk by my room and you see that I haven't made my bed, sit down and talk with me, because if I haven't made my bed, it may be something serious. That's how much making my bed means to me. Not only do I make my bed, I always make sure that my bed is fresh. And what I mean by that, and that's why I say that I have to go in a minute, is every week, it does not matter what is going on every week. Every week I get up, I take my sheets off, I put them in the washer machine, and I wash my sheets, and I make a fresh bed every week. My bed is always fresh. I don't feel like I'm climbing into a dirty bed. I don't feel like my bed smells, nothing like that. Where I go to lay and I go to rest and I go to heal, I want that to be a fresh area where I feel like I climb into my bed and I feel like I can relax. I don't feel like I'm bringing myself into any type of dirty environment, any type of unclean environment, any type of environment that smells sweaty. I want to feel like I'm climbing into a very clean place where I can just let myself go, relax, and have a good night's sleep. I also, Mackenzie's another one. I also have gone to where I'm sleeping on linen sheets. And let me tell you something about that, because this gets into the natural healing. But the reason I said that about my bedding is because I went and today, usually every 5 to 7 days, I'll do my bedding, and I started washing my bedding today. It really does to lay down on fresh sheets, you know, especially when you've gone, you know, and instead of making your bed, you're doing your bedding, you're washing your bedding, you know, you have a task, you've completed your task, you know, and it's all right, Marky Mark. Yeah, we'll connect later. We will do that. I'm going to put up on the channel itself, I'm going to put up a website where you guys can come and contact me if you'd like. And, you know, people still ask about buying my paintings, so I'm going to put up a place where people can do that if they want. It's always been appreciated. Like I said, there's a person in here who's a moderator. That person made me made me feel so good one day. They were one of the first people who asked if they could donate and buy treats for the dogs. Beautiful, amazing individual. She did that for me. But I've also, this is a life hack, but it's a powerful life hack, and I've done it. And this is a really amazing experience, because I've felt it myself, and what I felt I didn't expect. And what it is it's linen sheets. I'm quitting streaming the dogs. Yes, Mackenzie. I was telling people tonight that I was streaming the dogs too much. I was getting sick of putting cowboy hats on them and trying to use them for clicks and trying to get watch hours out of them. They're not circus animals. I'm not pimping them out for watch time. My animals are very special to me, very meaningful, and I need to show them more respect than I've been showing them. That is what I'm quitting. I'm going to start doing videos on the PTSD and on the experiences that I would like that would be able to help people, not just veterans, but people in general. So that's what I'm quitting. So linen sheets. They say, and there seems to be some evidence to back this up, if any of you in here are health related, this refers to grounding. And so your body, it's medically proven, has electricity running through it that runs at a certain speed. We'll just go speed. And the earth has electricity running through it that goes at a certain speed. And that speed matches your body. Well, if you wear plastic shoes or live in a house with carpet or things of that nature, it does not connect you to the ground. It doesn't connect you to the ground. Guardian angel, you're beautiful. It does not connect you to the ground so that your body can be in sync with the earth. And basically, there's a lot of new age terminology and things that go with this. Some people believe that, some people don't. But basically, it's about mechanics. The more efficiently your body runs electrically, the more efficiently you're going to heal, so forth. So I was watching a YouTube video on this lady who was talking about linen sheets. And she was explaining about how they heal your body because of the electrical makeup of these linen sheets, the way that the electricity flows through the linen sheets. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. It makes sense. And if you wonder, if you're out here listening, if you wonder about whether electricity in your body is real, I can explain it to you in three words: proton, neutron, electron. Electricity. So linen sheets have a certain speed that they run at, and the speed that they run at is so efficient that the whole time that you're sleeping on linen sheets, it's actually healing your body. And so I thought, well, what the hell? I've got a little bit extra money. I'll order in some linen sheets. And I looked at the cost of the sheets and I thought, wow, $150 for linen sheets. And then I, was reading up on them and I thought, you got the extra money, go ahead and do it. So I got the linen sheets in, and here's what I found out. So right here, I had somebody drop a piece of heavy equipment on my head when I was in the Navy, and I've got some really bad neck damage there, and it goes down into my back, into my right shoulder, and then 30 years of using a mouse at a computer, repetitive motion has really screwed up the right side of my back. And so I laid down the first night on those linen sheets. Holy cow. I felt my back was buzzing right there. But to me, that was the cheapest investment that I have ever made. $150, and I laid down, and my back was buzzing and the tension was releasing, and I never have, but I wasn't having to think about going on opiates. I wasn't having to think about going on opiates. I wasn't having to think about having surgery. For $150, that's a bargain. That's a bargain. I bought three sets of linen sheets since then. That is cheap. That is cheap. My back has naturally gotten worse. It just has to do with age. But I tell you what, it would be a whole lot worse if it wasn't for those linen sheets. If it wasn't for those linen sheets, and I feel it with my hip. Feel it with my hip. I have neuropathy from diabetes. I feel it. It helps. You know, I used to be, when I get in bed, my neuropathy would get worse. The other thing that it helped with massively was heat regulation. I would lay down in bed, my body would start to overheat. Hey, Chucky, start to overheat. I would start to sweat, you know, as that kind of guy. I'd put my foot down at the end of the bed and flip half the covers over, and half the covers would be off, half the covers would be on. Now I never take the covers off. My body always feels very much in, you know, the temperature's very even. I feel very comfortable. So yeah, $150 is cheap. There's others out there that I've looked at. They're $300, and I'm thinking about buying those too. I'm actually and the other thing that I do is I also take a copper wire and I run it out my window, and the copper wire sits. I have a rock sitting on top of it to hold it on the ground, but the copper wire is attached to the sheets, so the linen sheets are grounded to the earth, and so I'm just getting a lot of health benefit from that. But that's what I do for myself anymore. I make my bed, I wash my sheets, I sleep on natural sheets, and you know, if there's anything that I can do to get a couple more years out of my life, I'll take it. You know, I'm not trying to be fatalistic and say that I'm gonna pass away tomorrow, but you know, I haven't taken the best care of myself over the years, and so I need, you know, I need to treat every day like it's the best day of my life, which comes into the I'm quitting. I'm just quitting the stress. You know, it's been, you know, it was a great few first months of reaching 1,000 subscribers. I reached 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, exactly. You know what, Uncommon Woman? That's exactly correct, and that's. I'm glad that you brought that up. What she said was, walking barefoot on grass will ground you also. That's what I do when I take Denali up into the woods sometimes. I'll go up there and I will just walk around in the forest in bare feet. It feels great, you know. What it does is it grounds your body to the earth, Neon. So the earth runs at an electrical speed, let's say 55. The speed of the electricity in the earth runs at a speed of 55. I'm just using this as an example to help you understand. Your body runs at a speed of 55. It's in sync with the earth. When you wear you wear shoes, which are plastic, or you live in a house with carpet and foam padding and things like that, it's not directly connected to the earth, so your body can fall out of sync over time. The speed of electricity in your body can go off from that 55 to, like, let's say 45 or whatever. So it's not running at, you know, the max that it can. The word efficiency. It's not running as good as it possibly can. So when you go out and you walk on the earth with bare feet, like Uncommon Woman just said, the earth, what it does is it rebalances your body back to that speed of 55. So now you're at 55 again. Your body is tuned back up to where it's, you know, working to the best that it can. And the other thing is, I'll tell you that the other reason that I want to go back to making these long form videos, and I've talked about this video a million times because it's so important to me. I went out and made that video, Celtic Rain, and the other videos, the music videos with the nature put to it, on January 1st. And it had been 2 years since I'd been out there because right after my mom passed, I'd lost my job due to my disability. Very valid. I don't want people to think I'm using that as an excuse. I was on disability. I attempted to go back to work, and then I found out I couldn't, so I had to quit. And so I'd had to readjust my finances in my life, and I hadn't been able to really go out of town. So January 1st, I rented a car. I went back up to this place. And the reason I bring this up about the earth, this is going into what Uncommon Woman said, and I think that she'll agree with this, and probably Guardian Angel and a few others, is I went back to get back out into nature. I had not been in nature in 2 years, and it was killing me. It was really killing me because, I was just talking to my doctor a couple months ago, or a couple weeks ago, and I went down to see him, and I'm like, man, I went and bought Denali a new limousine, and Denali and I were going out every day, back out to the woods, back out to these places, back out to the place I went on January 1st where I made that video Celtic Rain. We're going back out into nature, and he's like, yeah, he goes, that's some of the best, they medical studies have said if you go back out into nature, it's very healing, and it's. And I'm like, oh man, it is. I said, I come back in, especially when I went out and made that Celtic Rain video after 2 years, I came back with Denali, and I was like, I was high, but I wasn't high like, after doing a drug or like doing ketamine that I talked about earlier. It was that beautiful, natural, wonderful experience of just feeling uplifted and feeling, I walked in. I've been with Denali, and we hadn't been up there for like 2 years, and I was looking back at the pictures that we had taken that day, and then I looked back at the pictures that we had taken 2 years ago when we had been up there, which was 2 days before my mom had died, and I was looking at these pictures again, and man, I almost started crying because it was like, I'm finally back up here. I'm finally back out in the woods. I'm feeling just amazing, and Denali's happy, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the videos as I'm pulling them up on the computer, and I'm watching them, and I'm just looking at all this beautiful scenery that I've experienced. And um, I've just got so many videos that I need to make to talk about some of these things because there's a really special meaning behind the videos I made with Denali 2 days before my mom died, and then the reconnection with those videos 2 years later. It had to do with one of the medications that I went off of because of that video I watched from that veteran who talked about ibogaine and what it did to my senses and my nerves, how it damaged them, and how, healthy eating repaired them, and some of the experiences I had. But the hardest thing that I'll say before I get off here is I go out and I look at, like that video, the baby, the pig in the pot, or the video Angel, where I talk about some of those things, some of the military things, and I see where they get 70 views, and I say to myself, you really screwed up, Dave. And the reason that I screwed up is because I started basing the success of my channel and the fact that I got subscribers off of the numbers based off of shorts. I released a short with Denali and Spirit playing around in the house, and it got 20,000 views. I released a short, YouTube short of Spirit when I took him to the vet, and he had his little bow tie on. It got 20,000 views. I released these two videos of these amazing, amazing stories that are to me, so much more important than those two videos, and they get 60, 70 views. And so what I did, and it was my fault, is I set myself up for failure by basing my success off of shorts versus long form. And so I have to recalibrate my system and my thinking and my way of doing things on my YouTube channel to understand that I have to basically start over. That's why I say I'm quitting. I'm quitting shorts. And I had to write that in there, and everybody's like, well, why'd you write just I'm quitting? Because that's all people read. most of the time. Not people in my generation. Yes. Um, yes. Yes, exactly, Uncommon Woman, exactly. You can't wear them at the same time. You know, with a Christian background, and I do definitely consider myself a Christian, even though I have a lot of interesting topics I talk about. Um, the priests in the Bible wore linen. Are you getting itchy again? I'm gonna have to give you another pill. But I just it's kind of, you know, it's hard for me to have this live stream because, you know, I'm seeing it in real time right now. There's 5 viewers right now. If I spun this camera over to the dog and gave her a dog treat within 15 minutes or 5 minutes, there would be a lot more people on here. And that's nobody's fault. Please don't think that I'm saying that's anybody's fault. That's, you know, that's human nature. People are on YouTube, and when they're on the shorts, especially in live streams, they're coming here because they're coming for entertainment purposes. That's what shorts are about. Now I have to back myself out and understand that I have to put in about 4, 5, 6 months period of time of rebuilding my whole YouTube structure to get to that point where I'm starting to see those positive results come back. Because when you look at YouTube, I have 1,300 subscribers, yes, but look at the number of people who are watching this live stream right now. There's 5. And those 5 people, most of them, you know, I have a group of, I'd say, 10 to 13 who are people who are like what you call your ride or die people. And I love all of you very much from a very personal point of view, because you've kept me moving on this. You know, I told myself a goal of 6 months of constantly making videos, and I've been at it 4.5 months now. And I've been really depressed the last week and a half because it's like, you know, you need to, I just keep coming back to, you need to do what you love to do. You need to do what your passion is. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the ketamine. I'm going to talk about, you know, the military sexual assault. I'm going to talk about, you know, the homicides. I'm going to talk about those things. And then once I talk about those things, then I'm going to talk about, okay, now that we've talked about it, this is, you know, this is the steps you take to get beyond it and get back to living a good quality of life. I'm not going to spend 90% of my time in the suffering lane and 10% in the healing lane. I really, one of the creators I admire the most is a channel called Hoof GP. And it's a guy who trims cattle hooves. And he, yeah, they do like to see the animals on live streams. I just don't, as I said earlier, I don't want to turn my animals into circus animals. And that's not on you. That's not on you, Uncommon Woman. That's on me. And I want to present my animals in a different fashion, you know. You know, one of the things, I'm going to show you this I'm going to show you this. This is where, we'll see you later, Neon. This was the final straw for me, Uncommon Woman. I'm going to show you this so that you see what the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm going to spin the camera around. There's a pillow right there. Over there in that corner is where you usually see Denali lay on live streams. What's been happening the last couple days is for a while there, when I do those sleep streams, you know, I get 500, 600, 700 people come in, and I'd look at that watch time, because I've been obsessing talking to you guys about watch time. I've been looking at that watch time and saying, okay, people were coming in, they were being part of the sleep stream. I was getting 20 hours of watch time out of it, and now the sleep stream has changed. Denali plasters herself up against the wall, and you know, it doesn't look good on a sleep stream. People aren't going to want to come in and watch that. My watch time has gone down. So I took that pillow and I propped it up over there because I wanted to see if she would lay her head on the pillow so it would look better on camera. And I was sitting down here at the table a couple hours ago. I made a video, and I'm not going to release the video. It's just a video that I needed to make. But I made a video, and I was like, you know what? This is wrong. Because now it's the pillow, but what is it next? You know, you consider yourself to be a top tier animal, you know, dog owner, taking care of your animals, and yet you're wanting to put a pillow up so that your dog will lay down correctly, so that people will come in and listen to music and watch a YouTube video so that you can achieve a goal. It's just, it's not worth it. It's not worth it, you know. You know, it's a pillow, but, you know, last night it was, you know, I'll wait to feed the dogs 3 hours and feed them on the live stream because they weren't eating their food during the day, during dinner. So I'm noticing all these little slippages, and it's like, you know, dude, if you're going to sit around and talk about being a dog owner, you got to back up your own bullshit. You know, you got to catch yourself. And I caught myself, and I'm still, you know, I'm like, it was just little stupid things that, you know, everybody be like, oh, that's no big deal, but it's a big deal to me. And so I caught it, and I've stopped it, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the things I want to do on my channel. No, actually she doesn't. And the reason that she doesn't is I was doing a combing video earlier, and I can show you real quick. I can show you, let's see here. I don't think you've ever had a chance to see that, but that's, so as you can see, that's a lot of fur. And so for her, a bed, next year I'm gonna try to find some of the videos. It didn't happen here. We didn't get any snow at all, but you'll go out or you'll see Tibetan Mastiff owners making videos where they'll point their camera out in the yard, and I'm sure this happens with other breeds besides Tibetan Mastiffs, and they'll yell their dog's name, and all of a sudden the snow will rise up because their dogs are buried under the snow. She does not do well on carpet as a bed. She does not do well anywhere where the surface is not really cold. And so I try to, I don't have a bed for her. So there we go. I've rambled on, and I've rambled on, and I've rambled on. And I've rambled on, Denali. And it's too bad that I have to say goodbye to some people, but I think that these kids are better off watching other channels, and I'm glad the adults are here. Guardian Angel, if you're still here, thank you so much. You're awesome. I appreciate you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and get off and go make my bed. We'll talk to y'all later. If I put the camera up for the dogs and the dogs move, you know, I'll still keep the music streams going, but I thank you, Guardian Angel. Seriously, thank you very much. I'll keep the sleep streams going. I'm usually sitting here with the computer in my lap, but, you know, however the dogs are sitting is however the dogs are sitting. I just, as a dog owner, need to not worry so much about how the dogs are looking for the camera and worry more about making the videos I want to make. So we'll see you later. Aloha, kitty. I love you, kiddo. Take care down there in the Bay Area. I'll be on a little bit with the sleep stream, but as you know, things will be different now. We'll talk to y'all later.